Good evening. Welcome to our 2022 League of Women Voters Candidates Forum for the office of District 8 County Council of Prince George's County. My name is Gloria Johnson, and I was elected co-president in the League of Women Voters' most recent election. This candidates forum will be moderated by a trained neutral member of the League of Women Voters of Prince George's, Joyce Starks, who is a former league president, as well as a former WSSC commissioner. She will ask all the questions provided by members of the community and by LWVPGC. The League of Women Voters of Prince George's County, Maryland, was actually founded in 1921, and we are one of the first local leagues in the United States. The league consists of both men and women members. You too can be a member of the League of Women Voters. We have membership information on our website, and we hope that you will be inspired to inquire about becoming a part of the league. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization of men and women that encourages informed and active participation in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and we try to influence public policy through education and advocacy. I hereby introduce to you the candidates for District 8 County Council of Prince George's County in alphabetical order. First of all, I'd like to say that all candidates were invited. We have with us this evening Mr. Burrows, Edward Burrow III, who is present. Invited in the next alphabetical order was Mr. Knotts, Tony Knotts, who indicated he would be here, but has not appeared on the platform yet. We also invited Ms. Lofton, Dania Lofton, who decided to leave the forum before it started. Mr. Mathis, Jerry J. Mathis, is present. Mr. Wade, Vernon Wade, is also present. Each candidate received an emailed message, which they were asked to acknowledge if they were coming and would be willing to abide by the rules of this forum. Each candidate has agreed to be bound by the rules, and we have their signed statement. Now, here are the rules that they received. Each candidate will be given a 2-minute uninterrupted opening opportunity. Questions during the forum will be presented to the candidates by the moderator only. Questions will be of a general nature and applicable to all members of the forum panel. Each member will be provided a 60-second time span in which to respond to the questions presented by the moderator. The timekeeper, Mimi Lucis Machado, will present 15 seconds when that is what is left. And when she posts a stop sign, we will ask that everyone recognize and abide by that stop sign. You can finish the sentence that you're doing, but please do not get into another 2 or 3 minutes. You are bound to 60 seconds to respond. If a candidate is absent, his or her chair will remain empty during the forum, and a substitute will not be permitted. A late arrival will be permitted to join the forum, but his or her place cannot be held by another person until he or she arrives. There will be no interchange during this forum. It is a forum, and the League of Women Voters does not participate with debates. At the end of the forum, there will be an opportunity for each candidate to present a closing statement not to exceed 1 minute. At this point, I would like to turn it over to our illustrious moderator, Ms. Joyce Starks. Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, and thank you for the warm welcoming to this candidate forum this evening. You have heard the rules, and we will abide by those rules. So I will start with asking for opening statements. You have 2 minutes to give your opening statements. We are starting in alphabetical order, and it starts with Mr. Burrows.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this forum. I truly appreciate it. For those who don't know, my name is Edward Burrows, and I am the newly elected member to the Prince George's County Council. I want to start out by thanking over 5,000 of our District 8 residents for voting for me in our special election that was held almost 6 months ago. And since that election, since I've been sworn in, we've been working very hard to live up to the promises that we made throughout that campaign. Um, just some background about myself. I graduated from Crossland with Bowie State, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I was born and raised and from the heart church ministries, and now I attend Victory Christian Ministries International. I'm a brother of Alpha Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Prior to joining the council, I worked as the Legislative Affairs Director for our State's Attorney Aisha Brave. I worked on several laws and policies and initiatives to make our criminal justice system fairer and our communities safer. One of the major issues that I heard throughout my door knocking, and we've knocked on thousands of doors, is that our property taxes are just entirely too high for our seniors. And so the first bill that I introduced was a bill to lower property taxes for our senior citizens by 20%. Now, this initiative had been tried for many, many years unsuccessfully. I'm happy to announce tonight that we were able to get that bill passed. So I believe that in this short time that I've been on the council, I've been very effective in accomplishing so many of the promises and goals that I've outlined throughout the campaign. And I see that my 15-second marker is up, and I have so much more to say, but I will respect the time and come back when there are questions to go into more detail about myself and my platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. The next person would be Miss Lofton. Thank you, Miss Lofton. Your 2 minute opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Dania Lofton, and I'm a resident of Oxon Hill. Professionally, I am a healthcare policy advocate where I have successfully advocated for mental health policies to support youth, adults, and aging adults. Right here in our community in District 8, I've been a volunteer, and my volunteer experience includes working with local organizations to create, develop, and organize community educational programs, facilitating civic engagement and advocacy workshops, providing pro bono immigration legal services, advocating for and donating to local schools with purchases from small businesses right here in our district. As your county council representative, I will support and advocate for affordable housing, economic development, a quality education system, tax relief, quality healthcare access, public safety, smart growth, and community development. These are just a few of the things that I really will focus on, but what's most important are the people, our neighbors. I want to make sure that we all have a healthy, strong, and safe community that we can all live, work, and play in. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Miss Lofton. Next, we have the 2 minute opening statement by Mr. Mathis.
Good evening, and thank you for having here tonight. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. My name is Jerry Mathis, and currently I am the CEO of Mathis Realtors, a company that's been in business for close to 30 years, and for 20 of those years was the highest performing African American company in actually the state, in the Tri-County. I am a resident. I was born in Washington, D.C. I'm a resident of Prince George's County for the last close to 40 years. Went to Dunbar High School, and one thing I remember vividly is a plaque that was on the wall that said, "Past is Prologue" by Paul Laurence Dunbar. And another plaque said that the wheel is only strongest than its weakest link. I was a officer in the 82nd Airborne Division. That is a special unit, which whenever, as you know, a war breaks out or something that we're involved in, similar to a war, the 82nd Airborne is the first to go. Leadership is important. And I understood then that if I was going to lead where men would almost go to their death at any moment, that leadership had to be the omnipotent thing. It had to be the best thing that I could give to society. In addition to that, one of the best and most prolific county executives that we had, Wayne Carey, I feel we were cut from the same cloth, and he must have felt the same because he appointed me to many commissions. Commission 2000 that charted the growth for the county for 20 years. He put me on Wilson Bridge Committee. He also, I was elected to the Board of Trustees of Prince George Community College. I have a lot more to tell you. Been out there for a while. So hopefully as we go on in your questions, I'll be able to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. The next person we'll hear from for the 2-minute opening statement is Mr. Wade.
Hi, good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Conservation Voters for having me. I have worked with your organization in the past on major environmental initiatives, like getting the offshore wind policy established and passed in the state of Maryland. Loads of environmental initiatives that incentivize residents and citizens of Maryland, particularly in Prince George's County, to establish green policies and initiatives that improve that infrastructure. So again, my name is Vernon Wade, and I would like to be your District 8 Council member. I'm a husband and father of 3 Prince George's County public school graduates with honors. I'm also a student at the University of the District of Columbia, where I major in environmental science, agriculture, and urban sustainability. I'm a policy wonk. I believe in physically sound government that prioritizes resources and strengthens communities. I believe the greatest issue that's facing Prince George's County right now is our healthcare disparity. Prince George's County leads the region in AIDS, HIV and AIDS, cancer, heart disease, strokes, diabetes. I believe we're in a healthcare crisis, and we must pay attention and build and provide solutions to residents so that they can afford their property taxes, afford their homes, afford to live, afford to be able to go to work. So I think we have a lot of issues in Prince George's County that needs to be resolved. And I appreciate your time for listening to me.
Thank you. Now we're into the question and answer session. We will start with the first question from Ms. Lofton. Ms. Lofton, the first question asks, what or how does your experience prepare you for the duties of this office?
Thank you for that question. And that's actually a great question. So when we're talking about county council, we're talking about the individuals who create legislation that will help our communities become what they are, right? To make them stronger. Well, every day I am working at the federal and state levels of government to ensure that there are policies when it comes to mental health and healthcare as a whole, to make sure that everyone has access to quality mental health care services. So my day-to-day life, I'm in policy. I'm writing policy, reading policy, communicating with legislators at the state and federal levels, which makes me more comfortable and fluid in working with those entities and agencies in order to move policies. I also have worked in this field as an intern for the mayor of Atlanta, and I've also worked in politics with Maryland National Council, or not Maryland National Council, MNC PPC Parks and Planning, to also move some of the legislation forward. So I have a hands-on experience with getting legislation passed.
Thank you, Ms. Lofton. The same question goes to Mr. Mathis. How does your experience prepare you for the duties of this office?
My experience, especially as a military leader with the Elite 82nd Airborne Division, taught me that leadership is omnipotent. And I found in the county that if leaders don't lead, somebody will certainly lead them. And we've found that in this county, many of our leaders are being led because they are supported by people with money. Well, one of my qualifications is that I am financially stable. My company was very successful over the 30 to 40 years I've been in it. In addition, as a trustee of the Prince George's Community College, I understood the dynamics of education and economic development, how they intersperse with each other. I taught school for 5 years in Anne Arundel County school system. But more importantly, I have been an advocate for the people of Prince George's County for over 30 years and have worked diligently against opposition to make sure that we get what we deserve as a county and as a people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. Mr. Wade, how does your experience prepare you for the duties of this office?
Well, as a certified minority business owner in the state of Maryland, I've been successful in business. I've been a board member of the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce, where I work collaboratively with other business owners and with government to initiate economic development and growth. Again, I've worked with county government for years, for over 20 years. I've also been a part of the Climate Action Committee, which baselined the climate policies for Prince George's County. So I understand county government. I understand how county government works. I understand where there needs to be improvement. And so with my experience, I look to build a economy in Prince George's County in this new pre-COVID, post-COVID era that will move our county forward. So if you will vote for Vernon Wade, you'll vote for leadership that understands.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Mr. Burrows, how does this prepare you for the duties of this office?
Yes, and so I'm currently in office, and I can tell everyone that it is a very demanding job, and it's a great one. And prior to joining the council, I was the legislative affairs director for our state attorney Aisha Braveboy, where it was my job to write laws. I've assisted in writing laws around domestic violence, ghost guns. We have an uptick across our nation, but particularly in this county, where ghost guns. Also wrote laws around juvenile justice reform. Prior to serving on the council, I was on the school board. And so I had a lot of experience in having to work with a body. And when you're on a council, there's not much you can do by yourself. So having the experience, having to work with other colleagues to gain their support and their trust in order to advance pieces of legislation is critically important. And I've been able to do that very successfully. My time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Before we go into question number 2, I'd like to ask the candidates, could you raise your volume just a little bit louder and speaking into your microphones? Thank you so much. The second question, we'll start with Mr. Mathis. I'll say it one time, and if you need me to repeat it when we get to you, just ask that I repeat the question. This question says, what steps should the county government take to encourage economic development and job growth? Mr. Mathis?
Well, thank you. Thanks for the question. I was intricately involved with National Harbor. Wayne Carey, the county executive, wanted me involved to make sure that Prince Georgians and African Americans got a piece of the pie. I think a lot of people missed that when we were talking about jobs and restaurants, but we have to start talking about wealth and equity. And that's what I pushed for with and got a bill passed. I mean, not in office, but I got a bill passed. I wrote a white paper that actually the bill verbatim was based on that white paper to ensure that African Americans not only got jobs, but that we got equity, we got wealth, that contractors were bonded, and that contractors were given startup money. There's a lot more in that bill. So what I've done as an advocate for African Americans and Prince Georgians is well documented. Just go to my website, www.voteforjerrymathis.com, and look at the videos. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wade, the same question.
Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that question evolves around economic development, correct?
And job growth.
And job growth. It starts with education. It starts with preparing your next generation for the jobs that are available, that are the jobs that of the future. It is imperative that we invest in our education system and in our young people workforce development to train them. We're in a new dispensation now. We're not going backwards to the way that it used to be. As you can see with remote working, work from home and so forth and so on, it is a extremely difficult situation for employers now to find qualified workers, and it is imperative that we train people in this new economy. That's my perspective on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burrows, same question.
I was disconnected when you read the question. Would you mind repeating the question?
Sure. What steps should the county government take to encourage economic development and job growth?
Yeah, our county government spends hundreds of millions of dollars every year with contractors. And it's important that we place requirements for those contractors to recruit, hire, and train people who live here in Prince George's County. And I actually have a bill to do that, CB 33 and CB 32, that will hopefully be voted on after recess. What we found is that it is cheaper for contractors to bring in folks who are from out of state and not provide them health care, retirement, and basic benefits. And so they choose to do that. And so we as a county need to strengthen our minority business requirements and also our local hiring requirements, and also the conditions by which we allow these contractors to come in and who they bring with them. We spend a tremendous amount of money, and it's important that we leverage our own tax dollars to uplift working class people here in Prince George's County.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Ms. Lofton, the same question.
Thank you so much. So in order to encourage economic growth and job growth and development in our county, we see it in the northern area. So why aren't we seeing it down here? We have to start making sure that our neighbors here are empowered and informed. So how do you do that? I think Mr. Wade said it. There's education. You have to make sure that people are aware. We have to make sure that our neighbors are prepared for these jobs when they come here. I've heard many a times that the reason that a lot of businesses don't want to come here is because we aren't prepared. We don't have enough people ready to work in the service industry. So we need to make sure that we have programs that are preparing our neighbors to provide the best customer service, right? We need to also make sure that when we are looking at these developers who are coming in, make sure they're paying their fair share in taxes, making sure that, like Mr. Burrows said, they are hiring our people instead of bringing outside people. But it all goes back to making sure that our neighbors are informed and empowered. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we are providing them those workshops and services that provide them that.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mr. Wade. The COVID-19 pandemic has elevated health disparities in our community. How do you plan to address these disparities and the ongoing pandemic?
Wow, that's a loaded question for sure. I think the entire country has had to deal with that issue all the way down from the president of the United States. So for a local council person, I would have to utilize the resources at my availability, which is to strengthen our healthcare networks, starting with our health department, making sure that it's fully funded. For years, like I said, Prince George's County leads the region in health disparities, cancer, diabetes, heart attacks, strokes. I mean, we've been in a crisis for quite some time, even with the HIV epidemic. So COVID only exacerbated, just put another brick on a already heavy weighted shoulders. So I believe that it takes resources from our federal government to help us fund this issue that we're dealing with. We're in a health crisis.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. The same question goes to Mr. Burrows.
Thank you. You know, Prince George's County was hit hardest by the pandemic, and in part because of the issues that Mr. Wade raised during his questioning. We need to do a better job at providing more preventative care in the county. We also have a lot of staffing shortages at some of our hospitals here, and I've worked on a bill to incentivize nurses to come and stay and to do community programming here in our neighborhoods. Unfortunately, not all of the people who need to go get care actually get care. So it's so important that we set up our mobile health clinics that will meet people where they are. It's important that we go inside of our churches, inside of our schools to provide much needed services, because we have seen a very unfortunate trend of people waiting until it's too late to get the health care treatment that they need. And so prevention, okay, my time's up. Thank you.
Okay. The same question goes to Ms. Lofton.
Thank you so much for this question. So as a health advocate, I can already tell you access and funding, those are the biggest issues, especially in minority communities and underserved communities. So we need to make sure that we are, as a council member, providing that funding so that we do have access to mental health. And when we speak about mental health, we have to accept across the board that it's okay not to be okay, and to seek that mental health assistance that we all may need at some point, because we all will experience some mental health challenge in our lifetime. But knowing that it's okay to get that and accessing that, because mental health challenges can lead, if they are not taken care of, they can lead to other comorbidities that you've heard Mr. Wade talk about this evening: diabetes, heart disease. So we need to make sure we have access, but also as a council member, we need to make sure that we're advocating at the state level of government and the federal levels of government to make sure that we do have funding, because we can do that, and encouraging our neighbors to go right there with us to Annapolis and over to DC to advocate for funding.
Thank you. Mr. Mathis, the same question.
People, that these situations of health disparities, it's not new. It's been there since the almost beginning that we came to this country, and it's purposeful. We have super funds in this area, dumps everywhere where you see the dump trucks coming from other jurisdictions and dumping here. And it causes, you'll see areas where cancer is very prevalent. We talk about money when you ask these questions, funding. Well, the funding is not the funding. Money comes from federal and state. It's how that money is being circulated in the communities that where it's best needed. We should not have to wait for a hospital. Prince George's Community Hospital closed down. What we need to do is to get a handle on where the money is going. And we found out from the pandemic that we also have places where people don't have food to eat, so they eat unhealthy food. So therefore, these are the things we need to look at and stop talking about funding. We always want more money, but we don't direct it to where it should go.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. The next question goes to Mr. Burrows. How would you improve the school system and school safety at large?
School safety is well, those are two very broad questions. I'll take the school system to start. I mean, it is so important that we increase the amount of interventions that we have for our students who are struggling in basic reading and math. Our system has a habit of social promotion. Regardless of where you stand academically, you're going to go to the next grade level, and so you find students who are in high school reading on the middle school level, students who are in middle school reading on an elementary school level. And so we really do need to build in more intensive supports so that when we send a student from first grade to second grade, we know that they have mastered the basics. We also need to, and some of those interventions could include, after school tutoring, Saturday school, which is one of the budget amendments that I offered. During this pandemic, our students took a major hit. So one of the budget amendments that I offered that successfully passed was, my time is up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Ms. Lofton, the same question.
Could you please repeat the question?
Sure. How would you improve the school system and school safety at large?
All right, y'all are going to hear me say this a lot tonight. Mental health care is pivotal, so I want to make sure that by working with the school board as well as the superintendent of schools, that we have those adequate mental health care providers, those school counselors, and understanding that school counselors are not there just to tell your students where they should go to college or to help them get their college applications done. School counselors are there to provide a safe environment. They help provide a safe environment by helping students with issues and challenges that they have, whether it is academically or emotionally. And when we do that, I think that you also have to make sure, Mr. Mathis disagrees, but funding, you do have to have funding and make sure that you are ensuring that that funding is being implemented in the right schools, making sure that it is equitable funding, not equal funding, but equitable funding, because there's a difference between equality and equity. Equity means that we're going to make sure the schools that need it most get what they need, instead of making sure that everybody gets the same amount and it's not used or it's not sufficient enough for the schools. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lofton. Next, Mr. Mathis, the same question.
Did I answer that question? Repeat the question again.
How would you improve the school system and school safety at large?
Oh, I understand. Okay, improving the school system. I think at this point, we spend more per pupil than any other jurisdiction in the area, but we are the lowest performing except for Baltimore. The way I would like to reevaluate how the school board and the school system works with the county government. There has to be some accountability that right now does not exist. Everybody's operating their own area. What we need to do is put an emphasis on pre-kindergarten, because it's well known that as a kid learns early, as they progress through life, they're better prepared for life based on that early learning. The problem is when we talk about funding, we have been funded. We have a commission, the Thornton Commission in 2002 put out everything that was necessary to build a excellent school system. It was put on the shelf. Then in 2019, we did the same thing with the Kerwin Commission. Exact same thing. The problem is they're not being implemented. Many of these elected officials, they will always come out and say what we ought to do, but then it's never done. We have to start implementing the educational objectives that will get us to the point of our children excel.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. Mr. Wade, same question.
All right, I'm going to wing it because I think I remember the exact question pertaining to education. Education is vitally important. Community collaboration is the key. You must involve your community in the education process. I was the president, PTSA, Parent Teacher Student Association president. And one of the initiatives that I took on was to make the PTSA compliant so that the PTSA could receive local, state, and federal funding, grant opportunities, so that the principal could use those resources, already tight budget, to expand programming within the school. I remember as a board member of the PTSA at Crossland High School, where Mr. Barrows attended. Mr. Barrows graduated in one of the finest graduating classes that Crossland High School has ever seen, and he is a representative of that. And so that, I believe, collaboration and community collaboration is key in building our parent-teacher student associations to strengthen our educational system.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. The next question starts with Ms. Lofton. What is the most significant issue, as you see it, facing District 6, Prince George's County, and how will you address it?
Well, I would assume that District 6 has the same issues that we have right here in District 8, which are health, environmental health, economic health, and physical and mental health. So when we're talking about environmental health, we've touched on it. Everyone's touched on it a little bit this evening. But right here, right along the District of Columbia, we have a lot of pollution. We have inaccess to quality foods. We have people living with shorter lifespans for these reasons. And so when it comes to environment, we need to make sure that we are working on getting those zero emission buses and zero emission services down here sooner rather than later. We also need to make sure that when we're talking about our economic health, that we are, as we talked about earlier, preparing our neighbors to work in these careers and these jobs that we need to bring those businesses here. And when it comes to physical and mental health, we need to make sure that our neighbors have access to those services and making sure that they are aware of those services. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lofton. Mr. Mathis, the same question.
Yes. First of all, as a businessman, and working with National Harbor at the time that it was first brought into Prince George's County, I'm big on economic development. Economic development is the lifeblood of any community, and we must be cognizant of that and look to ensure that any development that happens in Prince George's County, especially we have a lot of that development as far as National Harbor, it must pay to be able to play in this county. So that is one of the biggest things, economic equity, that we can start to establish generational wealth. The other thing is with all the other districts is educational initiatives. We have to bring up our educational standards so that our kids will be able to compete in this global economy. The other thing is food deserts. People didn't realize to the pandemic that we have just as many food deserts because of the long lines in District 8 than we have in some of the other rural areas. So these are a lot of things that need to be addressed, but we need real leadership to do it. And I offer you real leadership and not that what I'm going to do. Let's talk about what we've done.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. Mr. Wade, the same question.
Could you repeat that question, please?
Yes. What is the most significant issue facing District 6, Prince George's County, and how will you address it?
Well, the most important issue facing District 8 in Prince George's County, where I live, is of course, I will continue to say, and the environmental issues that we face are important. If you're familiar with District 8 and Fort Washington and areas of Fort Washington, they're underwater. We have serious stormwater management issues. The soil is eroding. Folks' basements are being flooded out. And that's because a lot of our homes were built on bad building codes. And so I believe the most important issue facing Prince George's County District 8 is, of course, also food scarcity. I think that if a pandemic came about, or if the grocery store is closed tomorrow, how could we eat? Agriculture. I think we need to build our agricultural economy so that we can have food. If in food, because our food is scarcity is of the utmost concern.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Mr. Burrows?
Thank you. The most important issue concerning District 8 is really recovering from the pandemic and dealing with this inflation that we have really across our country, but certainly here in Prince George's County. There is not a feeding site that we do in District 8 that does not have a line wrapped down the street because our citizens are hungry. When you look at the math and literacy scores after the pandemic, you'll see very clearly that our young people have taken a major hit. When I meet with the apartment complex owners, and when I meet with the banks and Department of Social Services, we have so many of our District 8 residents who are behind either in their rent or in their mortgages. And so it really is the economics that I see as one of the biggest issues facing our district.
Thank you. This will be our last question for the evening. This question starts with Mr. Mathis, and the question is, please share your concept of how to balance the needs of the community against those external forces, such as developers and persons who seek to make profits at homeowners and citizens' expense.
Well, great question. And I'll go back to National Harbor and the bill that I got passed. The one thing that I found with National Harbor is that I threatened personally to sue the county and Milt Peterson, the owner of National Harbor, if they did not come back to the table and give more equity and contracts to African Americans and Prince Georgians. I was successful in that, and we came up with CB 23. People don't realize at this point that equity I talked about, there are 2 hotels and 2 office buildings that are owned 50% by African Americans based on the proposals that I put forth. The other thing is that these developers come in, we don't ask them for anything. We just want to be loved. Let's stop them at the county line and make them pay their fair share. Now, the thing is, if you don't lead, you're going to be led. We see all this money being put behind these elected officials. I have challenged them. I will give my first year salary of $120,347 to nonprofits to show that I'm not in it for the money, but I'm in it to uplift the people that I've been doing it for the last 30 years.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Wade.
Okay, let me make sure that I'm framing your question correctly. And so if there's an issue that I would have with previous development policies that have taken place that impact the residents of Prince George's County, it would definitely be the monthly water and sewer infrastructure charge that are attached to most residents' mortgages. Residents' mortgages are in either foreclosure or either have liens on their property because of infrastructure water and sewer charge monthly bill that is attached to the property. And that is an imperative issue. I can't figure out for the life of me how that particular bill, infrastructure bill, was able to pass our county council. And I think it's imperative that we take another look at that particular bill or that particular policy and figure out, based on some of this infrastructure money that's coming from the federal government, maybe how can we dig the residents of Prince George's County out of that hole so that they can save their homes and afford to live, because that $300-400 a month could mean food in people's in folks' refrigerators. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Mr. Burrows?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
You're there. You're on.
Wait.
Something happened to Mr. Burrows' screen.
Infrastructure, Wi-Fi. It's a very important issue.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Burrows.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I think I lost my connection of some sort. But I've made very clear to all of the developers that whatever development that they desire to bring to District 8 must be something that's going to uplift or enhance our community, not simply make them money. I have no interest in making any developer money. I owe no developer nothing at all. I've been very concerned about some of the development projects that have occurred in the county. We see throughout the county an excessive amount of liquor stores, fast food, carry out. Right here off Highlandtown Road, where I live, we have 6 gas stations all right next to each other. And so I want development that's going to uplift and enhance the community, and that are the only, and those are the only development projects that I'm entertaining. And I also let developers know that if they want to do something in a certain neighborhood, they must go and talk to that community first. So often you have development deals that are made between the council, the exec, and the developers. But in District 8, since I've been here, I've made clear that they must engage the community that they wish to develop in.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Next, Ms. Lofton.
All right. So, how do we balance the needs of our community? Well, it's really listening to each other, listening to all of the communities that make up District 8. What are your concerns? What are your needs? And taking everyone's needs and concerns and looking at them as a whole and saying, okay, what do we agree on and what don't we agree on? And then going to my colleagues on the council and saying, well, what are your issues? And how can we connect and balance and make sure that we're all getting what it is that we need in our communities? Another thing that we need to do is continue to do is make sure that I'm in the community constantly. Once elected, it's just not I'm elected and you only see me at council meetings, which is another issue. Council meetings are in the middle of the day where most people are working. So that means a lot of people aren't able to attend those meetings or listen in. So I want to make sure that people have the information that they need from those meetings. Make sure that I bring that back to them and have town halls and community meetings regularly, not quarterly. Just make sure that we continue to keep that conversation going.
Thank you, Ms. Lofton. Now I will hear from you with your closing statements, and we will start with Mr. Wade. 1 minute.
Again, thank you for having me. I really was excited when the League of Conservation Voters reached out to have this forum. I think your advocacy is important and it matters. Again, I'm Vernon Wade, candidate for District 8 Council, and I need your vote. I can make a difference in county council. I understand policy. I'm a physical policy wonk. I understand what it takes to build a vibrant, safe community. I believe healthcare is the most important issue facing the residents of Prince George's County. And I will be a strong advocate for mental health resources, for family counseling, police and public safety, and of course, climate change to protect us from the scarcity of food shortage. So if you will elect Vernon Wade as your District 8 council person, you'll have a leader that understands the issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Mr. Burrows?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you tonight. I also want to, of course, thank the residents of District 8 for putting their trust and confidence in me less than 6 months ago. Since being elected, as I mentioned in my opening, we were able to deliver on a property tax credit for our seniors, reducing thousands of Prince George's County seniors' property taxes by 20%. And that is just the beginning. We also have several of our education initiatives, several of our beautification initiatives that we have in the works as well. So I look forward to continuing to serve, and I will be at a door near you. I've knocked thousands of doors. I didn't stop knocking doors once I got elected. We are making our second round throughout the district currently since I've been elected. And so I've truly engaged talking with the District 8 residents one-on-one, and I'm going to continue to do so even after this election. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lofton?
Thank you so much for this opportunity this evening. If elected to this position, you are going to have a representative who can think outside of the box to provide sustainable solutions that last longer than 5 years, that last longer than the next election. These are going to be solutions to our issues that will continue to grow with the times. I'm focused on the people, my neighbors, to ensure that we are sustaining or fostering more economic growth and development that will continue to build and maintain strong and healthy communities so that we can continue moving forward together. It's more than just District 8, it's the Prince George's County. And if you elect me, you will have a leader in office who will make sure that I advocate for all Prince Georgians. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lofton. Mr. Mathis?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks again for having me here. I'd like to say the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. And I've really stuck by that. I am unbossed, unbought. I've run for office before, and you might think, well, why hasn't he been elected? Because what I advocate is anti-developer and anti-controller. We elect people every election time, and we put them in office, and they promise you all the things they're gonna do, and then when they're in office 4 years later, you're asking for the same thing. So what I'm saying to you is that we have to start putting people in, not come to you with this slate of what I'm going to do. I will do this for you. I will do that. When did they go before the county council on their off time? When did they really advocate for you by going and proposing proposals for your betterment and the betterment of the county? They wake up in the morning and all of a sudden it looks easy, and Lord, it does. And then they want to run, and then they disappear. So I'm saying to you, I put my money on the line. I will work for you for free for 1 year and use that money for all the ills that we've talked about. Food deserts, mental health. That is my commitment to you. If you want a warrior and a real advocate, vote for Jerry Mathis. Go to my website, voteforjerrymathis.com, and look at the videos. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. I'd like to thank each one of you as candidates, and I wish you much success in your run for office. I wish we could vote for all of you because you all have a lot to bring to the table. And whoever's selected, I hope that the others will get behind that person and help to support that person in the county. I want to thank the folks that zoomed in through the live stream YouTube. I want to thank them for participating, for sharing questions. I want to thank the League of Women Voters Prince George's County Candidate Forum Committee, as well as Prince George's County Community College for helping us to put the candidate forum on and live stream it. So I'll turn it back over to the president of the League of Women Voters. And thank you again, Ms. Gloria Johnson.
Thank you, Joyce. This concludes this evening's program. I want to thank each of the candidates for your participation here this evening and for your expressed willingness to serve in public office. Those who serve in elected offices offer to the community a willingness to work, to give of their time, to take responsibility, and those are traits for which the League of Women Voters has the utmost respect. Again, I want to thank our moderator, Joyce Starks, for her great volunteer service. Thank you, Joyce, for your flexibility and your professionalism. To those of you in the audience who are watching on live stream, this program is something that we want to have you focus on voting. Early voting, for example, can be done. You can vote in person during early voting. Early voting will be held from Thursday, July 7th, 2022, through Thursday, July 14. Early voting centers will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So, who can vote early? Any person who is registered can vote during early voting. The voting deadline depends on how you want to vote and receive your ballot. If you want to receive your ballot by mail or by fax, your request must be received by the Board of Elections, not just mailed to them, but they have to receive it by Tuesday, July 12th. If you want to receive your ballot by the internet, your request must be received by 5 p.m. Friday, July 15th. Whether you elect to vote by the internet, by fax, or in person, please be sure to vote. Your one vote is important. And the league always says voting is not a spectator sport. Please get out and vote, however you decide to do it. Thank you.